Fresno, California, once known for its fertile farmland and blue-collar values, is now grappling with a crisis that is hard to ignore. The streets are overtaken by tents, sidewalks are lined with people in pain, and entire neighborhoods seem to be slipping into hopelessness. This isn't just about drugs or the economy. It's about a series of systemic failures, all happening at once. Flawed policies, a lack of affordable housing, inadequate health care, and ineffective addiction responses. People often say homelessness is a choice, that it's just a matter of individuals refusing to work or improve their lives.
They put me on probation, intensive probation, because I kept getting arrested for possession of marijuana or dropping dirty for marijuana.
That's the bad news. Good news is it made me detox. I haven't touched fentanyl in over 8 days, I want to say. Yeah, I'm still smoking crack. I haven't quit everything yet. I'm still homeless out here, so it's still very rough for me to be completely sober, but that big weight, that big burden off my shoulder of having to detox and get off that fentanyl was a major lift for me.
But is that truly the case? Would anyone willingly choose to sleep on the cold, hard ground, vulnerable to violence, enduring extreme heat or freezing nights, if they had any other option? The reality of Fresno streets paints a much different picture. Let's take a closer look at what's really going on. What would you do if your city transformed into an open-air shelter without anyone really noticing? That's the unsettling reality Fresno, California, can no longer ignore. Once the thriving agricultural heart of the Central Valley, Fresno is now struggling with a homelessness crisis that far outpaces the resources, political backing, and community support needed to address it. According to the 2024 point-in-time PIT count, over 4,300 people are experiencing homelessness in Fresno County on any given night, an alarming 33% increase from last year, and more than double the number from just 5 years ago. Half of these individuals are living without shelter, sleeping in cars, tents, parks, or under highway overpasses. The most disturbing aspect is that more than 25% of this population is made up of women, and over 400 are families with children.
That they would have us out of here by the night, and we are still here. And the only thing that they accomplished in 2 days with a bulldozer, they did more damage to these woods than these people that live here have done in 40 years. They just destroyed camps. They cleaned up some garbage, but we don't have a trash service. You know, we don't have a way to dispel with all the garbage for the people that are here. If we were to work with the people and get help from the city, they could put dumpsters out here, and we would put the trash in the dumpsters. We would do that. You know, we're not opposed to working with these people, but we are humans and we're here. And we don't have anywhere to go, man, so this is a good spot for us.
Encampments have sprawled across Fresno, stretching from downtown alleys to the industrial zones near Highway 99. These sites are far more than temporary shelters. They are visible signs of human suffering, marked by piles of trash, used needles, and an absence of basic sanitation. Despite the city's efforts to clean up the areas weekly, the camps return larger and more entrenched each time. How did Fresno get here while other mid-sized California cities have managed to better handle the crisis? One reason lies in the city's persistent poverty rate of about 23%, which is significantly higher than the national average. Additionally, the Central Valley lacks the political power and economic resources of coastal cities like Los Angeles or San Francisco, leaving Fresno with fewer resources and less state-level support. The impact is felt beyond just the numbers. Local hospitals are seeing more emergency room visits related to exposure, infections, and overdoses. Downtown businesses are closing or moving away due to safety concerns and declining foot traffic. For residents, many of whom are struggling themselves, there's a mix of sympathy and frustration as they face a crisis that seems to have no end in sight. Fresno isn't collapsing all at once. It's slowly coming apart, bit by bit, as thousands of people fall through the cracks. This quiet unraveling is a stark reflection of the larger homelessness crisis in America, where neglect replaces urgency and silence becomes the new norm. In Fresno, fentanyl and methamphetamine have evolved from simple drug issues to powerful forces reshaping the city's landscape. These substances have deeply infiltrated housing stability, mental health resources, public safety, and even city planning. This is not an endorsement of drug use, but rather an urgent look at a growing crisis. The scope of the challenge begins with availability. Between 2017 and 2023, Fresno County saw a 250% increase in meth-related arrests. At the same time, fentanyl, stronger and cheaper than heroin, has overtaken it on the streets. Law enforcement seized over 36,000 counterfeit fentanyl pills in 2023, a sharp rise from fewer than 2,000 just 3 years earlier. These drugs are often mixed with other substances, making the situation more unpredictable and dangerous. The true crisis, however, goes beyond the drug trade itself. Methamphetamine, with its severe neurological effects, induces paranoia and erratic behavior, making it difficult for individuals in shelters or housing first programs to follow basic rules or share living spaces. Fentanyl's powerful physical dependency leads many to prioritize their next fix over food, shelter, or health, derailing recovery and long-term support efforts. Fresno's behavioral health system is already stretched thin. As of 2024, the county has fewer than 30 detox beds available at any time. The ratio of addiction counselors to individuals needing help is alarmingly low, one counselor for every 145 individuals. Wait lists for residential treatment programs can stretch for months, leaving outreach workers with limited options. Some might argue for simply arresting those involved to clean up the streets, but this approach has proven costly and ineffective.
That's not a crime in the state of Alaska.
Fresno's jails are overcrowded, and brief jail sentences do nothing to address the underlying addiction. Furthermore, California's Proposition 47 reclassified drug possession as a misdemeanor, limiting the justice system's ability to mandate treatment. Fresno is caught in a cycle. Addiction prevents access to services, and a lack of services deepens dependency. Homeless encampments grow as individuals fall through the cracks of a strained system. What seems like another chapter in the homelessness crisis is, in reality, a structural emergency that requires more than temporary fixes. It demands long-term, systemic change. In Fresno, Survival is a daily battle, and the system meant to help is struggling to keep up. Social services are supposed to be the safety net, providing shelter, food, healthcare, and support to those in need. But the reality is far from ideal. The system is buckling under the weight of demand, leaving thousands of people without the help they need. Fresno County's Department of Social Services offers vital programs like emergency shelters, behavioral health treatment, food assistance, CalFresh, and general relief. However, in 2024, over 9,000 people sought emergency housing support, while fewer than 1,300 shelter beds were available each night. Even with the efforts of nonprofit organizations like Poverello House and the Fresno Rescue Mission, shelters are often full, turning people away night after night. Adding to the struggle, many services operate on a first-come, first-served basis, with long wait lists and limited intake hours. For someone living in a tent or car, showing up at 8 a.m. with the necessary paperwork is a major hurdle. This system unintentionally leaves out the very people it's supposed to serve. Mental health services, too, are overwhelmed. Fresno County's behavioral health system has only a few crisis units and inpatient beds. Case managers, overloaded with up to 70 clients each, can't provide the level of care needed for people suffering from conditions like schizophrenia or PTSD. Food insecurity is another growing issue. More than 280,000 residents of Fresno County now face hunger, with mobile pantry lines doubling since early 2023. At the same time, nonprofits are cutting back on food distribution due to budget constraints and inflation. For those living on the streets, finding a meal means hours of waiting or walking miles to a mobile pantry. These struggles lead to an uncomfortable question. Are social services really meant to help people escape homelessness, or are they just managing the issue? With limited resources and broken systems, many are left to fall through the cracks. It's not that they're unreachable, it's that they've been deprioritized. The situation in Fresno is a microcosm of a broader issue in America, where safety nets exist but are stretched too thin to truly make a difference. In Fresno, the gap between need and support is no longer just a crack, it's a chasm. The phrase being homeless is a lifestyle choice gets thrown around in debates all too frequently, but is it really a fair judgment or just an excuse to dodge deeper responsibility? In Fresno, this belief remains entrenched among some residents, who argue that shelters are available, jobs are there, and that people stay homeless because they refuse help. But when we dig deeper into this narrative, it falls apart. A 2024 survey by the Fresno Madera Continuum of Care revealed that over 68% of unsheltered individuals had sought housing services in the past year, only to be turned away because of overcrowded shelters, eligibility restrictions, or long waiting times. Many had even attempted to find treatment or reconnect with family, but faced red tape, lack of transportation, or simply didn't have the necessary identification. Let's be real. There are some people who do take advantage of their situation to access free resources, whether it's basic necessities or, unfortunately, substances that support their addiction. But that small group of individuals should not be used to justify a blanket dismissal of the larger, more complex issue. It's essential to remember who we're talking about. Veterans, seniors, single mothers, people with disabilities. These are not people who are too proud or lazy to accept help. They are individuals caught in a labyrinth of bureaucracy, battling trauma, mental illness, or addiction. To label that as a choice is to overlook the daily struggle for survival. Even in Fresno's thriving agricultural economy, where seasonal labor is in high demand, employment doesn't guarantee an escape from homelessness. A farm worker earning $16 an hour can't afford the $1,400 rent for a one-bedroom apartment. So, when the numbers don't add up, can we really call it a choice? It's time to face the facts. When every exit is blocked, is it truly a choice, or have we just stopped noticing the barriers? By labeling homelessness as a choice, we shift blame from a broken system and silence the real stories of pain and resilience. This myth doesn't just mislead, it harms, creating a shield for accountability and ignoring the structural failures that contribute to the crisis. It's time to stop hiding behind that shield and start facing the reality of the problem. What happens when a full-time job no longer guarantees a roof over your head? In Fresno, this is not a hypothetical question. It's the harsh reality faced by thousands of families, workers, and seniors who are learning that housing, once considered a basic right, is now a luxury they can't afford. Over the past 7 years, Fresno has seen an alarming shift. Once celebrated for its affordable living, the city has experienced a staggering 62% jump in the median rent for a one-bedroom apartment, from $860 in 2017 to over $1 400-inch 2024. Meanwhile, wages have barely budged for the working-class population. Even with California's minimum wage set at $16 an hour, it's still not enough to cover the ever-increasing cost of rent. According to the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, a household in Fresno needs to earn at least $27 an hour to afford a modest two-bedroom apartment without being burdened by rent. For farm workers, gig workers, and single-income families, that wage is out of reach. One missed paycheck or unexpected expense could push someone into homelessness, no matter how hard they work. And it doesn't stop there. Fresno is short more than 35,000 affordable rental units, and new housing projects are often aimed at higher income tenants or luxury apartments. Local resistance, restrictive zoning laws, and delays in construction have created a bottleneck where demand continues to grow, but the supply of affordable homes remains limited. As if that weren't enough, more and more homes are being snapped up by out-of-state investors or converted into short-term rentals, further depleting the stock of long-term housing. This not only drives up prices, but forces local residents out, as they can't compete with corporate investors or the booming tourist market. What was once a housing market has turned into a battle for survival. For too many in Fresno, the answer is painfully clear. This isn't just a policy issue. It's the root of America's homelessness crisis. Fresno's homelessness crisis is a glaring problem that's only growing, and it begs the question, has the country been too focused on the outside world to notice the collapse happening within its own borders? Over the last 2 decades, the U.S. has poured trillions into military spending, foreign policy, and overseas conflicts. Between 2001 and 2021, over $8 trillion was allocated to post 9/11's wars, according to the Costs of War Project at Brown University. Meanwhile, back home, cities like Fresno are left scrambling to fund the most basic needs like shelter and social services. Local officials in Fresno have tried to step up, pushing for more funds, new shelter beds, and expanded outreach efforts. But these attempts often feel like putting a Band-Aid on a much deeper wound, especially when federal investment is so limited. Yes, there have been grants from HUD, emergency pandemic relief, and a few state-level programs. But these are short-term fixes, heavily bureaucratic, and nowhere near enough to tackle the scope of the issue. The real question is, where's the equivalent of the Marshall Plan for housing? Why aren't we applying the same urgency to rebuild communities at home as we do when rebuilding nations abroad? National media constantly shifts focus to border politics, international conflicts, or partisan squabbles. But the fact that over 653,000 Americans are homeless today only gets fleeting attention. Fresno's struggle isn't isolated. It's a symptom of a broader issue. The country has prioritized military strength over social welfare, and the results are clear. The persistence of homelessness in America isn't due to a lack of resources. It's about where and how we choose to allocate those resources. Until the nation decides to invest in its people with the same urgency it invests in wars, cities like Fresno will continue to fall behind. Let's not pretend this crisis is an accident. The situation in Fresno is the result of policies that have placed short-term gain and profits over long-term stability and human well-being. The system didn't fail. It's working exactly as it was designed, protecting capital, managing poverty, and quieting discomfort. The consequence? Entire groups of people are left to suffer on the streets. It's easy to blame individuals, to say they've made poor choices or are struggling with addiction, but that's a convenient lie that lets us avoid facing the real truth. In one of the richest countries in the world, housing is no longer a right but a privilege. We've normalized suffering as long as it's out of sight, spending billions to clean up the streets while we refuse to fund meaningful mental health care or build permanent housing. Fresno is not an outlier. It's the model for what's happening across the nation. The story of homelessness in America isn't just about tents and makeshift shelters. It's about a country that rewards the wealthy and punishes those who fall behind. We don't need more sympathy without action. We need accountability. We need bold investment and radical housing reform. If we continue to look away, the collapse won't stop at the sidewalks. It will spread to the very foundation of our society. And by then, it may be too late. Conclusion. Fresno's homelessness crisis isn't just a local issue. It's a glaring warning sign for the entire nation. The tents lining the streets, the pervasive fentanyl crisis, the overcrowded shelters, and skyrocketing rents are just the surface of a much deeper problem. It's a failure of a system that prioritizes profit over people, that refuses to recognize housing as a basic human right. This isn't about charity, it's about justice. The homeless didn't end up on the streets by choice, and they won't find a way out without real systemic change. Band-Aid solutions like short-term funding or increased policing won't cut it. What's needed is large-scale affordable housing, accessible health care, and policies that see citizens not as burdens, but as valuable members of society. The truth is simple. If we keep ignoring crises like Fresno's, we're only delaying our own downfall. So the real question is, what kind of country do we want to be?